We'll do it live. All right. I'm here with Tony Huge. I'm Alexander, senior software developer slash mindset, break bad habits coach. And Tony, introduce yourself to us.
I'm Tony Huge, and I got a lot of bad habits I got to break. I do underground biohacking, specializing in chemical biohacking, using supplements to enhance every human attribute and part of the human experience.
So I know that you're pretty big in the fitness community now, but I want to go back and I want to learn more about like your childhood actually. So where were you born? What was it what was it like growing up? Which city you lived in? From what I understand, Sacramento, perhaps.
Yeah, I have divorced parents, and so I got two completely different upbringings because half the time with my mom's side, my mom and stepdad, half the time with my dad and stepmom, both in the Sacramento area, both like wealthy, quality, conservative upbringing. So I don't have one of those stories where I came from nothing. You know? I came from something, and then I had nothing, and then I built something. So my childhood was really good. In fact, too good, too sheltered. And that led to a lot of narrow beliefs and having to learn things in life the hard way, which is probably how I ended up learning so much. So actually, in the end, it was a good thing. And I try to give the same childhood to my children, but I haven't yet. I still have kind of a crazy life. You know, I live now in Thailand and travel the world. So it's the opposite of the conservative upbringing that I was raised with. My life is completely different than how I was raised. That's the interesting part.
It's funny you say that because I come from like the Russian Soviet Union household. So when we moved to America, also very like conservative, cannot stay out late, which kind of sucked in the beginning, but I realized it also kept me away from a lot of issues. But did you grow up in Sacramento then most of your childhood? And because I used to play tennis tournaments in Sacramento actually, so I've been there a few times. But what was it like growing up like in Sacramento?
Yeah, Sacramento, and spend a lot of time in Lake Tahoe and Hawaii, a lot of family vacations. And Sacramento I was growing up in the good area, so there was no crime, there was nothing bad, again, extremely sheltered. But then later I moved to the bad areas because I started building houses, buying houses. And I just went to the bad areas because I saw the most potential. Buy bad houses in the bad area and then do construction, fix them up, and then flip them, sell them, rent them, things like that. So I ended up living in these terrible areas and experiencing, robbery and theft and living with the lowest of society. And still I maintained, actually it made me very egotistical about my anti-drug beliefs. I was extremely anti-drug when I grew up. My mom didn't even want me to use NyQuil, So then what changed is I experienced the hard life and then started self-experimenting and realizing that this entire beautiful world of chemical enhancement was available. And so I went from that extremely conservative upbringing in the Sacramento area and Folsom to what the public would think is like dangerous, reckless overuse of chemistry, which isn't true. It's actually all experimentation and very calculated. Yeah.
Gotcha. You mentioned you were buying real estate. Was this before you started fitness? You were already doing fitness?
I started fitness when I was 12 years old because a girl told me that she only wanted a boyfriend with abs. So I had to build the body to get the girl, but it became my ego. So, of course, beyond just trying to get girls, it just became my lifestyle at a young age because I adopted fitness at age 12, 13, 14. I just continued it forever. And I was always into biohacking, but it was all the Huberman natural style biohacking. So heck, I knew about circadian, all the stuff Huberman talks about now, or Dave Asprey or Peter Attia. That's what I was doing when I was 12, 13, 14 years old.
Wow.
Reading every book I could get my hands on. The chemical biohacking came much later.
Was there like a very impactful book around that age that got you into it? A specific book or anything like that? Some resource?
At that time, it was the magazines. I bought every bodybuilding magazine on the shelf for years and read every single one of them. And then it was the spiritual self-development, self-help books. Go to the section at the bookstore, like a Barnes and Noble, and I would just go through the self-help section and buy all of the books and have a huge book collection. I was 14, 15 years old, especially. And some of these spiritual books that really opened up my mind and made me think of spirituality like another human attribute that could enhance your human experience. So yeah, I was really into meditation at that age. So I was trying to develop myself mentally, physically, and spiritually when I was 14, 15 years old. But again, without the chemical enhancement.
Okay.
But yeah.
That makes sense. And so initially, before you really like entered the whole bodybuilding world in terms of like business and conventions and stuff like that, you were doing law. You got into law.
Yeah, so it was real estate. It was auto brokering, building computers, buying things wholesale at auctions and then reselling on eBay. I was just a workaholic and doing every opportunity that I could get my hands on with very little sleep. And I did that all the way through law school until I passed the bar exam at a very young age. I went to law school when I was 21.
Wow.
When I just turned 21. That month was when I started law school. So I did all of this stuff super early. I mean, I was like grinding, 18 hours a day when I was 18 years old, buying houses at the same time. I bought a house every year, 18, 19, 20,
Wow.
21. The long-term goal was to buy a house every year till I was 30 and then retire on having 12 houses. But then when I passed the bar exam and I thought, why not open a law office? So I just started practicing law and it went really well. I got a lot of clients and found out I was really good at it. So I ended up going down that path, even though that wasn't the plan. I only went to law school because my father required it in order to take over the family estate of real estate and property. But while I was in law school, my uncle ended up stealing all the real estate. I didn't realize how it worked until I actually had a law school class on wills and trusts and estates, and then realized I had rights and I could have protected the loss of my entire family estate. So I ended up past the bar and then started practicing law, and I did that for 8 years until I sold the law office and retired. And then that's when I went full-time into fitness. But even when I was a lawyer, I was studying biohacking and biology, bodybuilding all the time. That was my hobby. So my hobby, whereas most people would maybe drinking or partying or having fun, my hobby outside of law was studying, biohacking.
Gotcha. And what kind of law did you specialize?
I started doing everything because I wanted to learn it all, but I made all the money in bankruptcy law. And then I became the youngest certified specialist in business reorganization because I wanted to handle, reorganizing bigger businesses and the complicated puzzles and learning the insider information on big business. So I did that last couple years until I sold the law office.
What would you say is one of the craziest bankruptcy story or cases you have to deal with that you can talk about? Or something
it's
that
a lot of
gave you a shock?
responsibility.
Yeah.
And there's cases that came to me that nobody should have been able to solve. These businesses should have gone under. And I would save these businesses and restructure them, bring in investors, sell off assets. So it was quite strategic, and there's a number of different cases. But it's like, I don't know what would be interesting to say about any one case other than they're interesting puzzles, and you get to learn business and you get to learn psychology and how American system works. I don't think there's it's not like a criminal law case where it's so dramatic like that. It's all in the nuances. And probably the most interesting stories are ones I still shouldn't talk about because I was really creative in pushing the limits in the law. And there's a lot of things I wish if I was an influencer back then and I could talk about the cases I was doing and how I was finding the loopholes and getting creative. Oh, it would be so intellectually stimulating. But you can't. I mean, this is another reason why it's good that I'm, I know off topic, but I'm not a medical doctor. People call me Dr. Tony Huge. If I was a medical doctor, I wouldn't be able to talk about the chemistry I can. Just like as a lawyer, I couldn't tell people the truth about how the law system works. There's a lot of censorship that would be enforced against your professional license. So that's how they really control you. So now I don't want to have a medical degree because then I would not be able to tell people the truth about how medicine works. And I do have a law degree and a law license still active. So I can't publicly tell people how the legal system really works, or I would lose my license.
How did your law skills of practicing business based on your professional law transition into entrepreneurship, into like fitness industry?
I was always entrepreneurial, so it was more of a surprise that I went into law in the first place.
Okay.
And I had to learn a whole new way of thinking for that, because I'm also the business optimist. I had to learn how to be the lawyer pessimist and skeptic and cynic. And then having those lawyer skills, though, helped my biohacking research so much, because something that nobody else in this industry has is the extreme ability to determine what's good information and what's bad information. The way something is written, the way someone says something about something, or just comparing different facts to each other, like having this lawyer skills in the medical industry is just a cheat code. Unbelievable. So yeah, that gives me a superhuman advantage. And I realized that already when I even was in law school and I was developing my brain this way and learning this methodology of thinking, and I was reading medical studies, I'm realizing, wow, when I'm reading these medical studies, I'm reading them from a completely different perspective than people in the medical industry. I can see where they're lying in all the medical studies. And medical studies are a lot of misinformation, intentional. But you would never think so, because they're medical studies. There should be sacred, right?
Yeah.
There should be no bias. There should be no manipulation. But they're all biased. They're all manipulation. And unless you're a lawyer, you just can't pick up on it. And that's why so many scientists and people in the medical industry just have such wrong information, is even though they have the medical studies, they still are interpreting it wrong because they are not able to spot the misinformation or the manipulation. Yeah, so I sold the law office after I traveled the world, and to Asia specifically, and just saw the world was so much bigger, and I was a big fish in a small pond in Sacramento. I was a famous lawyer, super successful. I achieved every element of the American dream except for having, a family, children type thing at the time. So it's kind of like, okay, I won the American dream. And then I went to Asia, and I'm like, oh, this is a whole new game I can play, not just in Asia, but worldwide. And so I started thinking bigger, and it broadened my perspective. And that's when I said, what am I doing in a law office in Sacramento? It'd be different if I was in Miami, maybe Vegas, something like that. But Sacramento, like I was a big fish in a small pond, and I just reached the limits of my potential in that town. So then, yeah, I actually retired not planning on working or making any money from law. I just started YouTubing as a hobby business to lose money for tax benefits. And then it just went super viral because there was nothing as authentic, transparent, honest as what I was doing in fitness on YouTube, other than Rich Piana and Boston Lloyd. But they were not good advocates for like people like us. Boston Lloyd was a young, reckless college kid, which is amazing. He opened the door to honesty and transparency about bodybuilding chemistry. And Rich Piana had the style and just this American excess, almost like this professional wrestler element that he added to bodybuilding and transparency. But also it's like he wouldn't appeal to you. You're a business professional, you're an entrepreneur, you're a tech guy. It's hard for you to relate to that kind of guy, whatever it takes, like damage your health to get as huge as you want. So I said, okay, I'm going to come from a totally different angle. I'm like a CEO. I'm a lawyer. I am an intellectual. What if I start telling people the truth about chemical bioenhancement? And then obviously there was nothing like it at the time. So it just blew up huge.
Okay. And this was around 2000 something?
Maybe like 9 years ago.
Okay.
That was when it probably first started blowing up. And then it was about 6 years ago, maybe less than 3 years in, when I got fully censored, wiped out, deplatformed, and all my content was deleted.
Wow.
And now a lot of it's been reposted and I've made new content. But yeah, wiped me out for telling the truth and had to start over.
Okay. Just going back a little bit, when you said that when you traveled, it kind of changed your perspective and you quit doing law at that time, where it's interesting how in America, most people don't even have a passport. So hopefully you saying that inspires people to get a passport and travel outside their US bubble and see how other people live.
I used to try to encourage people to travel. I used to say, you need to travel. It's the most important thing you can do. And you need to take psychedelics also, right? But see, even when I say that, a lot of people go, whoa, a lot of resistance. Oh, no, I heard traveling's dangerous. Oh, psychedelics are drugs. And now it's more like I understand people need to find their own journey. I mean, if someone really asks my advice, then yeah, I'll tell them. But I don't really go publicly and say, like, you need to travel anymore, because like a lot of people just aren't ready for it. It's like part of their own personal journey. That's why I kind of wanted to map it out, like personal development. Like, okay, here's the check boxes I think that you need to do for the human experience. And travel would be one of them. But maybe that's further down the list, and maybe people aren't even near that. Because when I say travel, I'm not talking about travel to Mexico to go to a dance club or something. No, I mean travel, like actually feel what it's like to look at the world through a completely different cultural perspective. That kind of traveling.
Yeah, I agree, because I feel like a lot of people that grow up here, they sometimes, well, most people don't really appreciate what they have until they see how other people live in other countries. And maybe not everyone can afford an iPhone at 11 years old, or some people don't even have food or live like in a village, and people don't have the perspective.
Well, there could go both ways though. You could travel and realize, oh, wow, America is not my culture. I don't belong there. I'll never be happy there, knowing what's out in the world that may be more optimal for me to thrive. Or you travel and you don't like the other cultures, you don't like the other style, and you come back with gratitude. Like either way, it's a wonderful, important thing for the human experience. I'd say the worst possible scenario is you travel and realize how miserable you are in the United States, and then you can't get out of the United States, and you know that you're a prisoner. That would be the worst case scenario. But if it's something other than that, then it's a good scenario either way, whether you choose to stay out of the U.S. or choose to stay in the U.S.
Yeah, I personally love U.S. because, my parents brought me here from Russia, which was former Soviet Union. So I know a lot of immigrants would die to come here just because of the opportunities career-wise. But I do agree, even if you're born here, it's important to travel, because if you just stay here and never traveled, that's like picking up a good book and just reading one page. You want to explore what else is out there, just so you can make your own opinion and decision, what you like, don't like, and perhaps take on some of the parts of that culture and apply it here.
Yeah, as far as opportunity, I think there's a lot more opportunity in Dubai than America, though. So I don't think America is the land of opportunity that it once was. I think America is becoming much more restrictive. The taxes are much higher. There's much more laws. And the more successful you get, the more boundaries you push, the more you start to experience these glass walls that you didn't know were there before. So eventually, though, like even if you build up all your success in America, eventually you'll hit a wall where you realize you probably need to be international, probably need to have at least half your money offshore, need to have multiple passports, and you don't want to get stuck in a situation where there's lockdowns or something and you can't leave America, and then America's surveillance system and loss of privacy is developing very quickly with advances in artificial intelligence technology. So I think for now it's build up the money and the resources, but like don't see the end of the line as building success in one country in the end.
Yeah.
Now it does, but.
And even in China, I think they have like AI where it gives you like a social score or something like that, where here in Vegas casinos, some of the casinos have AI. When they ban someone, the AI can detect your face. So as soon as you enter the casino, thank God that hasn't happened to me, but I know some people that got banned, and as soon as they enter the casino, the AI picks up the facial recognition and the security comes up to them. Not every casino, but if it's happening in one of them, eventually it's going to happen in all of them.
I mean, in China, there's cameras on every street corner recording every word you say, every movement you make, and it's all consolidated like what we have, the Central Intelligence Agency, or National Security Administration. So they have recording on everybody at all times, all your internet activity, everything. And that's pretty dangerous because then you don't have freedom. Then you can't disagree with the government. You can't take a position different than the government tells you to take. And you're pretty much a slave in those countries. But they're pioneering all this technology, and it's going to be very easy to carry over to America. So I see that coming. I see that the future. And I personally will go places where there isn't 24-hour surveillance and loss of privacy. But Dubai is one of those places also where they record everything you say.
Yes,
and everything you
I've
do,
been to
so.
Dubai and I felt like I'm being watched 24/7. And the thing is, what you said is kind of scary because that's the reason my parents escaped, like the Soviet Union, Russia, because that's how it was. Everyone is listening. Everyone works for the government. Everyone is a snitch. If you say something against the government, and I think in Dubai as well, in China, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. In Soviet Union, they would just, KGB, secret Russian police, would come pick you up and you disappear, aka in the forest and some gunshots. But that's a different story. Let's get more into, you have your own supplement company, is that correct? Is it called Enhanced Athlete or?
Yeah, Enhanced Labs. Yeah,
Enhanced
focusing
Labs.
on, there's a lot of cool supplements for bodybuilding, building muscle, fat loss, mental performance. But protein pancakes is the bestseller right now. Because
Protein
that's
pancakes.
a mainstream product that's in the stores. They're pancakes, much healthier than any other pancakes you'd buy because healthy ingredients, and then they have protein also.
And is it distributed globally? Is it in stores in the United States or?
Yeah, it's global. Certain regions have access to a lot more of them than others, but U.S. and India and the Middle East and South America. Yeah.
Yeah, I need to try them out. When did you? How did you decide to start the supplement company, and what was like the process of finding out which supplements to sell? Because I know supplement market in bodybuilding, especially, it's a very oversaturated and highly competitive kind of industry or niche. So how did you kind of maneuver that, like stand out?
One of the first products was Slin pills, SLIN, which is like insulin, Slin, because that's a short name that we would use to call insulin in bodybuilding. And it was, and still is, the only product designed to put carbs into muscle. Because there's a lot of different products that they are glucose disposal agents. They help you increase insulin sensitivity and fat loss, muscle building. Indirectly, but this is directly puts the carbs right into the muscle. So this is a revolutionary product. This is a product for anti-aging, for building muscle, for burning fat, for feeling good, for mental performance. It's a product every human being should be taking. And that was one of the first products, and that was such a hit, and it still is a hit. It's still one of the best sellers.
Wow.
Even after all these years, because still no company has made anything as effective of it for its specific purpose. Like I said, there's glucose disposable agents, but not any like this that actually you eat it with carbs and the carbs go in your muscle and the muscles actually fill up and you feel stronger and bigger immediately.
Is there, like, you think, a reason why other companies didn't copy the product to make the same type of clone of it?
Yeah. Because none of the companies still understand a methodology that I developed that actually completely changed the bodybuilding and fitness, muscle building and fat loss industry. They don't understand the methodology deeply. Companies either borrow parts of the methodology, but the insulin pathway is still, even though it's gaining more attention with type 2 diabetes, with GLP-1 agonists, appetite suppressants, even though insulin sensitivity is gaining more attention, people still don't realize how significant it is and how it can completely change your life if you have much better insulin sensitivity and much more ability to store calories in your muscle instead of into your fat. It's a game changer. So I think that other companies, they still make glucose disposal agents because they're coming at it from sort of a fat loss angle, but none of them are really coming at it from like a holistic health, muscle building, fat loss, longevity, mental performance angle. Maybe because we just are so well established in the space that it would just basically be a knockoff. But I think it's really because they don't deeply understand how important it is on this pathway and to really invest in it. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. I gotta look into it. It's interesting because a lot of companies sell like protein, BCAA, and things like that. But this sounds pretty unique. And the pancakes, because I bought a few pancakes before from different companies. It was like I can make my own. So I'm excited to try this. I'll tell you the truth when I try it. What would you say your goals are for the future of your company, supplement company? Are you bringing in new products? Are you gonna remove some product? What is the vision, long-term vision?
A lot more health food, protein food, fitness foods, because I love these type of foods. Like I like desserts. I like pancakes. I like waffles. I like chips. I like cookies. But if I eat unhealthy snacks like this, I feel guilty and it'll ruin your health and your physique.
Yeah.
So to be able to have delicious protein health foods that are like desserts and be able to eat desserts whenever you want and be healthier for it, to me, that's just the ultimate. Supplements, a lot of people hesitate to buy supplements. A lot of people think, oh, supplements are bad. There's a lot of dogma around supplements. There shouldn't be, but maybe a few companies ruined it for everybody. But with foods, nobody has any negative feeling about the protein foods. So I like the fact that it'll push me to work on my larger mainstream influence because it'll benefit the food products. And so I feel like I can grow as an influencer to the next level. At the same time, these products can be growing to the next level.
Okay. Interesting. Protein. Yeah. So do you have like any like ice cream type of food or?
Ice cream's too perishable, too hard to keep refrigerated. Yeah. I mean, I love protein ice cream.
Yeah.
I go to the store and I buy protein popsicle, like the yogurt, like a Greek yogurt is basically like a protein yogurt bar. It's as healthy as you can get. So I eat a lot. When I'm in America, I eat a lot of those type of snacks. We don't have as much of those in Thailand. There's not as much health food and protein foods in Thailand. But that's what I'm hoping to change that. But still, like the ice cream, even in Thailand, is so hot. Like, look how hot it is in Las Vegas. It's just hard to transport.
Yeah. I think the biggest concerns I heard from people about eating certain foods that are healthy is like they just don't taste as good.
Yeah.
Like a protein, ice cream or a protein like bar. It just like they say it doesn't taste good, but that's not true because you just have to search and try out a bunch. There are products that taste really good, and I don't eat.
Yeah, and even if a health food product can be 80% as tasty, but it's actually healthy instead of unhealthy. Okay, that small amount of sacrifice. I'd rather eat a protein pancake than chicken and rice, anyways.
Yeah.
It's even though the protein pancake might taste better if it was packed with more fat and more sugar. It's still a dessert. It's still delicious, and it's still much more appealing than chicken and rice.
And it's still healthy.
Yeah.
Yes, so makes sense. Well, since they call you Dr. Tanya Huge, right? Do you have any medical degrees or anything at all?
I bought a medical degree online.
Okay.
So technically I have one.
Okay.
But I don't have a professional license through a state in the United States that would limit my ability to speak about actual medicine.
Okay. So in terms of like biohacking and fitness, what would you say some of the, in your opinion, like groundbreaking experiments you conducted related to fitness? That you were amazed by result, perhaps, or finding?
I did the world's fastest muscle building transformations and the world's fastest fat loss transformations.
Whoa.
And the reason I know they're the fastest is because no one else is willing to push the limits and take on the liability and take the risks that I am. And experimentation, it can also do discoveries like I make, but it could also have very dangerous implications because you're the first person to do these things.
Yeah.
So what I did is design the anabolic matrix, enhanced muscle matrix, and the fat loss matrix, where I break down every pathway and mechanism of action of fat loss and muscle building. I blast all of them at the same time to see how fast the human body can actually change.
Yeah.
So I've done a lot of these experiments. I've done multiple movies about it, like Enhanced Generation Iron 1, Enhanced 2, Vice, National Geographic Trafficked on Steroids. And then a lot of the experiments I did that were never publicized. I can't publicize them. There's things I just can't talk about, but I have to be the pioneer to experiment on this stuff because I don't do it. Nobody will.
So what drives you to kind of push those boundaries? Because other people are not doing it, or are you trying to see how far a human body can go, or what is the drive you have to do?
Oh, there's a lot probably, but some of it is maybe I get bored because I already did. It's as if I have 50 years of fitness transformation experiments because of all the work I've done on it. And it's just a natural progression. Like I just want to keep pushing the limit more and more. And then I have a very unique understanding about how the human body works. It's very different than how a medical professional thinks about the body, or a normal fitness trainer or biohacker. And it's sometimes I think, gosh, am I insane? I'm the only one that thinks like this about the chemistry. I'm not the only one, but the only one who is public about it. There's plenty of underground researchers who keep to themselves and do this type of research. And I traveled the world meeting these type of people. But a lot of these people don't want to be public, can't be public, would be censored if they're public. So I consolidate all that information. So actually, when I first started publishing extreme transformations, I started building an underground community of researchers that I also could learn from. And so it also built that as my persona, and I just went further and further down that road. And then I met Coach Trevor, who defied all science. This guy was professional Olympia bodybuilder size, but he barely worked out and he barely dieted. And his existence proved a lot of my theories that I had for so long. And he also thought about the chemistry like I did. So I was like, wow, here's a guy who's just so far beyond. He wasn't public. So imagine you have all these influencers talking about all these experts, world experts, and the truth is the world's expert is not even public. He's doing these experiments on himself underground, like a lot of these guys are. So when I met him, it just validated everything. And then we just went together down the research tunnel further and further, like a rabbit hole. And the discoveries that we made, and I mean, things like cancer, HIV, like all these major diseases, like we learned there's a cure for absolutely everything in the human condition. Everything has a cure. It's just that it's hidden from people. So then it's like uncharted territory. It's like Star Trek. It's like traveling into space where no one's gone before, and you just go further and further. But of course you can't bring the audience with you all the way because you'll get censored. So, only a small percentage of what I actually do can be talked about online.
The rest you can tell me offline.
The rest, yeah, absolutely. Offline, my friends know, like you can ask me the questions that I can't talk about public, and I'll tell you in person. In fact, I was thinking of, we masterminds, like you're part of this men's group that does masterminds. And I was thinking that's a place I could share the secrets.
Yeah.
I mean, not everybody needs all these secrets because some of them are just so extreme. Most people could just do with the basic coaching. But there's just some stuff like I just want to tell, but I can't. But I want more people to know it, because the more people that know it, the more people that will defend the freedom to use chemistry and the freedom to access information about chemical biohacking.
Yeah. So in terms of what you can talk about for the viewers, what would you say is like the most surprising result you kind of observed from doing this kind of experiments, either, with your friends, by yourself, or like natural supplements, or just something that surprised you and you didn't expect?
Surprised in a positive way?
Yes.
I mean, I went into the experiments with usually thinking optimistic, but it's a hypothesis. You're trying to prove the hypothesis wrong. So usually go in with the most optimistic idea. But I really didn't know. The shocking ones to me are more recently, when I really didn't know if I could change a woman's psychology.
Oh, wow.
You know, I know if a woman goes to therapy for many years and if she gets a fitness trainer, yes, over many, many years, she can make some amount of changes. But I'm like, can I cause a woman to do a 180-degree turn and go from being destructive, unstable, alcoholic, addicted, dopamine system is broken? Can I fix all of that and turn basically a loser female, a low value female, into a high quality female? And if so, then this is just absolutely game changing, because then, a lot of the women out there, like the standards are so low. The women are just okay these days with just being very low value. And I thought, wow, for successful men, it's slim pickings to find like really high quality women. So I'm thinking, if we can biohack these women to increase their value, their looks, their psychology, their ability to be feminine, then what's more important than that? So especially it's my own benefit, but it also benefits all men. So the surprising results is that it actually worked. And I have actually made some insane transformations for women, both physically, mentally, and spiritually. Because before that, it was the bodybuilding and building muscle, 20 pounds of muscle in 12 days, extreme things like that. Lose a pound of body fat per day for a decent period of time, extreme transformations. But to me, the psychological transformations is even, maybe just because it's newer to me than the bodybuilding transformation, is even more mind-blowing. And it's just uncharted territory.
Well, changing someone's psychology in general is very tough, right? Because of all the anchors and programming from childhood. Yeah. So, I didn't think it would go to that direction, but hey, why not? And specifically, you said women because you're dating a bunch of women and you want to make sure they're up to your standards of what you want them to be psychologically, physically, mentally.
Yeah, I mean, biohacking a man's psychology is much easier than a woman's psychology. So, like, because men just are more logical and we're more goal-oriented, and we feel the need to improve ourselves. Society creates that need for us. But like women can just ride on just some minimal amount of looks. Men will always take care of them. They'll always get attention. Like, it's so easy to be a woman. And that's why their standards for themselves is so low. So for a man, I can talk to a man and convince him to do better and help him do better much easier. But for a woman, it took a lot of chemical biohacking. Yeah. And now it opens the door to where because I don't think I can find I don't think my perfect girl exists. I think she has to be built. So the question is, like, what raw material am I starting with? If I'm able to biohack a girl from a 7 to a 10, now that opens up a whole world of more women that are available. There's so many more 7s. There's so few 10s, So if I can get a 7 and I can build her to be my perfect 10, then that opens up a lot more available women.
But in terms of looks, right? It's like, I know you can biohack their psychology, for example, but in terms of looks, sure, like they can get into the gym, work on themselves, maybe do their hair different and stuff like that. But it's really hard for most people to physically change their like facial symmetry or appearance. So can you kind of go more into that? What do you mean by from like 7 to 10?
Well, it's not hard to change the facial structure anymore, but I don't do that part. Yeah. But I'll say I live in Thailand, and the Korean women are coming over, and there are Korean women that they've had so much plastic surgery on their face, you could never recognize who they were anymore. And they've built their faces to be what they believe is the most beautiful face. They just like selected. It's like going through a computer and going, oh, I want that face. You can have any face you want.
Does it look good though? Or? Yeah. Because
some of them, I mean, it depends how much money they invest into it. But some of these Korean women are just, I mean, they look like anime, like flawless, dolls. They don't even look real. They're so beautiful. But that's if you like the Asian style. It's just, but eventually that technology is going to be available in the US. But I'm talking more like you can take a woman who has bad skin, you can improve her skin. You can improve her jawline. You can have her lose fat. You can have her build muscle, have her carry a better vibe, a better energy, better posture. Kind of can change the structure of her body a little bit. But no, it's right. If her nose is super big, I can't use chemical biohacking on that. But then you could use surgery, but I don't do the surgery. No, so that's why I'm saying take a 7 to a 10, not take a 3 to a 10.
Yeah, I see.
See what I mean? Like you could get a 7 that maybe she's got a really beautiful face, but she's chubby. She's got an unhealthy diet. Her skin's not so good or whatever. And then we can fix all of those things and like realize the maximum potential of her genetic beauty, or even beyond her genetics to an extent. Yeah.
Just basically try to optimize as much as possible. Yeah, the thing that's happening a lot in America, and especially a place like Miami, a lot of girls get surgery or BBLs and stuff like that. But even in LA, the thing is when a woman is older and she has surgery, it's not like she looks like she's 21 or 23 again. They still look like they're older, but now they have a surgery or a reconstruction. So I feel like at least in terms of that technology, right now, a lot of people that are older are getting like different surgeries and stuff like that. It's more of a like they're in the experimental phase for the future when the technology gets better. And in terms of things like BBLs and stuff like that, to me, a woman, can go work out. And sure, there's a certain potential they can reach by doing squats and eating right. But at least that demonstrates to me they're disciplined and they're willing to put in work. Where BBL, a woman getting a BBL, to me, you're taking a shortcut, and it demonstrates to me you're not a disciplined person. And long term, that means you're going to be looking for shortcuts than put in work. That's how I see it.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I have that same, I would prefer an extremely disciplined woman, but disciplined women are hard to find.
Very hard.
Yes. So usually it just seems people do the minimum required to maintain a certain quality of life that they were raised with or that they have a vision or an identity to. So if a woman's really beautiful, then usually she's not going to be smart because usually she doesn't need to be smart. Or if she's really smart, then maybe she doesn't care about being beautiful. It's hard to find a woman that's just everything, 10 out of 10 in every category. So the point is you could pick a girl who was smart, who had a great personality, who had maybe discipline in all things except for her body weight, because maybe she spends too much time working and studying and she's a brainiac and you're like, wow, I want a smart girlfriend, but oh, she's chubby and oh, her skin or her hair or anything else. And we can fix all of those things. Yeah. And I'm specifically choosing women that, because I like long-term relationships, I'm specifically choosing women that I know will still be sexy 30 years from now. So that's my criteria. She doesn't have to be the smartest because I can biohack her to be smarter. She doesn't have to have the best body because I can biohack her to have the best body. But she has to have that. I have to be able to visualize that I'm going to be sexually attracted to her 30 years from now.
You got to look at their mothers. That's a very good indicator how they look like. Yeah. And in general, I like women that are beautiful, that don't lose. Women that are beautiful, that don't use their looks to make money. That's a keeper to me. Obviously there's more than that, but I'm just saying nowadays a lot of beautiful women, they use their looks to make money. It could be anything from bottle service girls to online websites and things like that, versus a woman that's beautiful and she could have been the model, but she decided to go do something that is where she's making money with her brain instead of her looks.
Yeah, that's a good standard. Exactly.
Because looks go away either way. Yeah. So then you're going to be left with a girl that used to be a hot model, but now she's just used to making money with her looks, right?
You know where all of this starts as far as women having such low standards for themselves? It starts with the lack of fathership. Like the father is not masculine enough and not controlling, honestly, of the daughter to teach her discipline and to teach her excellence and to teach her that, women should be more than their looks or shouldn't just rely on the looks or shouldn't just do the minimum, that they should try, excellence is a good word. But because America has just crushed masculinity in favor of, this new world definition of feminism, I think men's influence on children is just not as prioritized, not as respected, certainly not by the court system, certainly not by the culture. So it really comes down to the family. Of course, there's amazing women that there are 10 out of 10 in every category of women. It's just so rare and so competitive to get them because there's the lack of, good fathering, I think.
Yeah, and that's just in general, not just with women, guys as well. It's from what I recall, there were stats that a lot of people that are degenerates or in jail is because they come from a single parent household. And specifically, the stat said female household because there's no father figure to discipline. So I do agree with you on that. Since you're such a, switching subjects a little bit, since you are such a entrepreneur, what are like kind of key business you learned through the fitness industry, or maybe someone is watching, they want to see what you learned by building your brand, just any kind of top tips you can give someone?
There's unlimited opportunity out there. There is a lot of opportunity, and there's always gaps to fill. I think people make the mistake of copying what other people are doing because it's easy to have a vision for what someone else is already doing. But I think the key to entrepreneurship is find the gaps where someone's not doing that. And that takes some vision, creativity, some exploration. But there's so much opportunity. There's so much need. I don't remember who said this, but it always stuck with me, and it's very true. If you want to find where the opportunities are, then you interview people. Like you interview other businesses and you say, what are the gaps in your business? What are you missing? And the business will say something like, oh, this point of sale system sucks. Oh, the marketing this or that. And you start realizing the needs of others. And if you can fill those needs and the higher value those needs are, I think that's where entrepreneurs or people who want to be entrepreneurs should focus. And then the other thing is, this is normal. Like have a job that pays the bills while you're doing the entrepreneurship on the side. So you have that backup plan. Some people would say just go all in, but like there's so much trial and error. You don't want to get burned in entrepreneurship and then be out and think like, oh, it's not for me. I think you want to have some amount of stable structure, which also means just keeping expenses as low as possible. Like the difference is a wage earner, they'll make $5,000 a month. They're going to spend $5,000 a month. But if someone wants to be an entrepreneur, maybe they should be making $5,000. They should be spending $1,500. They should be sleeping on the floor, minimizing expenses, because they need to create a cushion so that they can afford to take risks. Because entrepreneurship, the difference is there's a lot of risk, and there's going to be a lot of mistakes before one reaches success. Whereas with a wage earner, there isn't risk, and you're not going to make mistakes as long as you do what your boss said. Yeah.
Exactly. So in those cases where you don't have to work with a Pacific time zone, for example, and if you're building some business, living in places like Thailand or Vietnam or Bali is much cheaper. But when I lived in Bali, I was selling websites to people in the West Coast. So the time zone is really bad. That's the only thing. So if you have some kind of business where, you don't need to deal with people in Pacific Coast, maybe going to one of those places, as long as you have discipline, because a lot of people go to Thailand, Bali, and they lose control, just like people in Vegas. Those are some good tips.
Why did you choose Bali over any number of other countries?
Basically,
how long were you there first?
3 months.
Okay. That's
yeah. Well, first I already had a planned Thailand trip. I was working at Apple as a software developer, and I quit my job to travel to Thailand. Then I went to Vietnam, and there was a business boot camp in Bali for 2 weeks. And me and a couple of people I met there liked Bali so much. we stayed and got a villa in Canggu area. And I do love Bali more than everywhere. I've been to Thailand, Vietnam, just because of several things, such as less, lady boys, more digital. Bali was number one digital nomad place at one point as well. So just the different people you meet, the less of that kind of like, like Thailand, sometimes I call it the Asian dirty Vegas in certain parts. The Bali just felt more pure, like an interesting aura about it.
Yeah,
something was different about
that
it.
was my impression. I just got back from Bali. I was there 10 days ago.
There you go. I call it the Asia, the San Diego of Asia.
Really. It's you know what? But the prices are going up a lot.
They are.
Bali's getting expensive fast because there's a lot of competition. Because there's a lot of super rich people moving there, and they're renting up all the houses, and the housing is becoming much more expensive.
More traffic, I heard, because
I went a lot of traffic.
I went in 2018, and it was already pretty bad, and COVID happened, all that, and I heard right now the traffic is absolutely horrible.
It's too bad about places like Bali and Phuket. Like these,
I love Phuket.
I think, are some of the best places in the world. But because so many people are moving there, it's so crowded, and the prices are going up so fast. It's just kind of ruining a lot of the appeal. But I will still go back to Bali a lot, probably, because now I have a lot of friends that moved there.
Yeah.
And a lot of these friends are like make huge amounts of money, and it's just their brain is in a whole different stratosphere, and I just need to be around that more.
That's what I liked about Bali. Everyone you meet there, a lot of them either working remotely or doing some kind of entrepreneurship type of thing, some interesting business. That I found out very interesting because even in Thailand, Phuket, I met just a lot of people on just vacation, which happens in Bali as well. But people that actually stay and live in Bali that are not natives, a lot of times they're hustling on something.
Yeah, and this is just so foreign to Americans. Americans can't even imagine this because, like in America, if you have $100 million, you probably can tell you have $100 million. Well. It's like people who have $10 million usually really flash the money. And then people who have $100 million actually look like they don't have money because they hide it. And so in Bali, I met so many people who are worth this huge amounts of money, but they're wearing like a t-shirt and sandals. They're not wearing an expensive watch. They're eating at regular restaurants. They're driving a motorbike. And it's crazy. It's like, what do they do with all that money? But these guys just love to work. They love business. Their life is business. They're not doing it just to make money. It's just that they're smart and they know what to do and they make the money. And it's just so fascinating to be around that type of person who's like, their personal development is all in here. It's not external. It's not about like, what car am I going to buy? It's like, how am I going to level up my perspective on the human experience? And that's Bali has that. And Thailand, it doesn't have as much of that. You know? So I need to get to Bali more.
Yeah, no, for sure. I felt, so I pretty much been everywhere in Thailand when I visited because I went with the group where we hopped around from PP Islands, Bangkok, Phuket. I stayed an extra 2 weeks in Phuket because I met someone I connected very well with from Russia. And then I went to Bali. Another thing about Bali is, at first, I didn't like it because we stayed in Sanur area. They kept us away from everything because they wanted us to focus on business. But once the business bootcamp ended and I started exploring, I realized how huge Bali actually is. Because some of the locations are 2 hours away from each other. Yeah,
that's true. You could get out of the. I like to be able to walk to everything. Yeah. So when I say things are more expensive and there's traffic, it's because I like to be in the action.
Yeah.
But that's true. I have one friend there that moved out to the country and has this beautiful villa, and probably for him to live there costs nothing because he's buying farm fresh produce.
Yeah. He's
cooking at home. He rides a motorbike. He's got this beautiful house on land, and it's not expensive because he's not near the city. So yeah.
No. I mean, I'm with you there. I stay in Canggu area where we walked everywhere. I didn't like taking the motorbikes because I seen too many accidents happen in front of me. Or I'm never riding a motorbike. But I'm just saying, I didn't realize how huge it was, because you think it's an island and it's easy to explore, but actually there's a lot of different areas, a lot of different. They even have like Omnia there, which is a Vegas nightclub, the same owners. So it's pretty crazy. So one thing I noticed when I was in Vietnam in 2018 is that not that many people were into fitness there in Saigon.
I went to the craziest gym in Vietnam.
Oh, yeah?
Flashbacks.
Tell me about that.
It was so packed and everybody had their shirt off and it was so hot and so humid. So every guy in there is just covered in sweat. And while you're lifting, people are bumping into you. So you've got sweaty bodies just bumping into you like a dance club while you're lifting. I've never...
And it's all dudes?
Yeah. And they're kind of flirty too, because I'm like American and they're like, they want to bump into me because they just want to like make contact because no Americans ever work out there, you know? Now that's a real local gym. So, you know, it's not, I'm sure there's air conditioned gyms. I'm sure there's bigger gyms, but actually I wanted to experience that one time just to have the craziest gym experience.
Well, actually in the gyms I worked out in Bali, which, man, the type of people that went there were like influencer types and super beautiful girls and everything. But the issue is like there is no AC. They just open the windows. So that's why I would go early in the morning, because eventually like Bali would get over like 100 degrees. You don't want to work out in those conditions.
Yeah, I was working out in an outdoor gym.
Yeah.
But because there was a breeze coming through, it was okay. Like as long as there's wind movement, but if you get in one of these hot, humid places and there's no air movement, oh, it's hard to work out because you get exhausted so fast. You can't really push hard. You're going to pass out.
Yeah. What would you say like the most developed country when it comes to fitness outside like United States?
U.S. has really good fitness scene, really good gyms. Cheapest. I think the U.S. has the cheapest gyms for the quality worldwide, which is shocking because, you know, it comes to food and services, everything else. America's super expensive, but gyms in America are super cheap for what you get. But there's equally good gyms in places like England. Dubai would have even like the next level up. And Brazil. Shockingly good gyms. Brazil's fitness scene, I mean, the percentage of people who are into fitness in Brazil is much higher than in America, I think.
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
the amount of supplements they have, the amount of gyms they have, the amount of people who are working out. And I would never expect that. It's quite a little bubble because they speak Portuguese and they don't speak English, and they're kind of isolated from the rest of the markets in the world. They're very self-sufficient.
Yeah.
So we don't get a lot of information on what's going on there. But then I went there and I was shocked. Their fitness scene was better than America in a lot of ways.
Yeah. I mean, Brazilian women are super beautiful, and
they care about their looks. They are trying to get big butts and small waists.
yes.
So you walk around and just like, boom, look at her. Whoa, look at her. And also genetically, they have this mix of sort of like this, what we think of like Mexican, Latin America, South America, but also like this African genetics mixed in too. That gives them those crazy curves. And actually in America, the African population, African Americans, have the potential to have the most extraordinary physiques if they just went on something like the carnivore diet or avoided fast food. But that demographic just happens to, you know, get addicted to the fast food and unhealthy food, and they shouldn't be eating as much. Their metabolisms are different. Like the American diet is just horrible for African people. But if the African people just eat healthy, not even without working, they don't even have to work out. They have amazing physiques. But the problem is they just don't eat healthy. So then you have in Brazil, you have people who have some of these African genetics and they eat healthy and they take care of their physiques. So you're just like, whoa, crazy physiques.
But that's also where the term BBL, right, Brazilian butt lift, comes from. Is there a lot of?
It was way popular there before it was in America.
Okay,
that makes sense. They pioneered the way for this, you know, crazy big butt. But in Brazil, a lot of them built the butt by just working out.
Yes.
And then in America, it's a lot more surgeries.
Shortcut. I
Yeah.
don't want to work out. Let me just get a. Yeah. That's interesting because I haven't been to Brazil yet. But based on people I meet from Brazil, the culture seems to be very friendly, open-minded, and fun. But
If you speak Portuguese.
yeah. Well,
I have a friend that speaks Portuguese and he loves Brazil. I went to Brazil and I really struggled without knowing Portuguese.
Yeah.
It was just too hard. I mean, it was trying to pick up girls and, you know, of course, if you're in a bar scene and everybody's drunk, of course, everybody's going to flirt and you can't hear each other anyways. But if
Google
you're
Translate.
actually trying to connect with someone, yeah, you use Google Translate, but it's slow and then you meet in person and actually the Portuguese or the Brazilian girls, most of them like to have conversations, and if you don't speak Portuguese, it's just so much more difficult. So that's why I'm not. If I could speak Portuguese, I would probably spend a lot of time in Brazil. But since I can't and I don't want to learn at this time, I just don't go to Brazil anymore.
I understand, because even when I went to visit Colombia, like I met a lot of cool people, a lot of cool girls. It was a lot of Google Translate, and the thing is, you know, I had great experiences, but eventually, like, if you want to build emotional, long-term bond, not speaking the language is a huge barrier. And that's the thing. That's why I like Bali a lot, because most people do speak English there.
Yeah, the Balinese people, actually, a lot of them speak English, and then there's a lot of foreigners there from all over the world, but a lot of them speak English. Colombia, I like because I speak Spanish.
Oh.
So I can communicate with girls in Colombia.
That makes sense.
But Colombia's not the safest country.
No.
I'm likely to have my phone and laptop stolen. I'm likely to be confronted or robbed eventually. So it's not that when it happens, it's a big deal because you can replace stuff, but it's living with the anxiety of knowing that you're going to get robbed. That's not fun.
Yeah. Medellin, whatever you want to call it, and Cali, Colombia. I've been to both, and there's definitely, even during daytime, especially if you don't speak the language, it's not
you're
super
just gonna
safe.
be a target.
It's not super safe. Because even the girls that live there, they told me they got robbed like 3 times, and they're locals. Think about it that way.
You can always stay in the safe areas, but then it's boring. You know, like that's why I like Thailand. You can stay in the crazy area and it's still safe. But in Colombia, the most fun areas are also going to be the most dangerous.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to have safety and fun in one place. So those are the type of places I look for in the world, where I can have the most fun and be safe.
I gotta say, Southeast Asia is probably the safest place. I never felt unsafe there, even at nighttime. You just feel super safe. So in terms of like when you travel to stay in shape, is there any like, or like maybe if you don't have access to the gym, you're in a hotel room, like for example, I like to do like burpees if I have access to a pull-up bar, do a bunch of pull-ups, push-ups. Is there something specific that you follow over the years where you saw at least that if you're traveling for a long time, it's not messing up your results or you're maintaining? Is there anything specific you do in terms of food maybe, or working out?
A lot of things.
Okay.
Number one is building a foundation of muscle in the first place so that you can afford to travel and lose a little bit of muscle but still have an awesome physique. And the more muscle you have, also the more you can burn fat. The muscle's burning fat 24 hours a day. And when people want to lose fat, I think building muscle is the first step, because then it's much easier to lose the fat. So building the muscle before traveling and then being able to cruise and not worry about it is step number one. Step number two is maintaining insulin sensitivity, and so using Slin pills. So I travel with the Slin pills. That prevents me from gaining fat, and it puts the carbs into muscle, helps preserve muscle. And then number three is knowing in general how much glycogen you can store in your muscle, because if you have too much glucose, you have too much sugar, carbs, you're going to spill over and convert it to fat, which also then causes other damage to the body. So eating a certain amount of carbs, but knowing when to stop, and then avoiding hidden things in the food, the oils, the seed oils that is popular to complain about. And it's true. I know when you eat out at restaurants and things, and developing a healthy staple diet of things like eggs and oatmeal, so that you always have like your baseline nutrition set. You're not dependent on eating something unhealthy. And then for exercise, you're right. Push-ups, you could do anywhere. I don't. I should. I probably will if you remind me. But I just try to get to a gym when I can. Maybe I only work out a couple days a week these days, but that's all I need to maintain this because I built so much permanent muscle and I keep my physique is low maintenance now. But getting little workouts in anytime possible just to spike the metabolism and to create the insulin sensitivity and demand for nutrients to go into your muscle instead of into fat. So yeah, if you could just do push-ups a couple times a day while traveling, that's good. But hotels have gyms. You can do a lot of stuff with small gyms if you're creative. But I think the key is every once in a while, go to a good gym and train really hard. Even if it's just once a week. Like the difference between training hard once a week and not training for health and longevity and the look of the physique and how you feel is just such a massive difference. So it's like find a way to get at least one really hard workout per week.
That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, one is better than none. Yeah. But for me, for example, I like to work out every day, even if like I'm not feeling great and I can't go full force, because it changes my psychology of how I feel. It puts me in that high frequency. It takes away all that an anxiety, because a lot of people nowadays have an anxiety or they panic. If they just did 20, 30 burpees or some push-ups, it would change their psychology.
And I think the benefit of daily exercise, it does vary from person to person. Some people's body type and psychology needs frequent exercise. I actually do. I'm much healthier in every way if I exercise in some way every day. And I need to exercise more and I need to do more cardio. But there are other people who can perform very well, who decrease their anxiety with very few workouts. So I'm saying to maintain my physique, I only need 2 workouts a week. But to maintain my mental health and to maintain my health and longevity, I really should be working out every day.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. In terms of, you mentioned the gym in Vietnam, but in all the gyms around the world you worked at, what's like one best gym you really liked, or some unique experience? Not like Vietnam one, but like more like, wow, this gym is super fancy, or it has everything I need. What gym impressed you?
In Kuwait, there's Oxygen Gym, which gained a lot of fame for creating some of the biggest bodybuilders and most famous bodybuilders of this time, because they would sponsor athletes and bring them over, and they'd be very isolated and just live the bodybuilding lifestyle at this amazing gym. The problem is that no women are allowed in the gym because this is like Arabic Muslim territory. Men and women aren't allowed to do things together. Women and men have to be separated for most things. So in the gym, there's all men, which is a different feeling. You have sort of that masculine competition and helping each other. And when you eliminate the women, actually men can bond more, because when you add women, then men sort of get competitive with each other in other ways. So there's some benefit to it. But for me, when I'm lifting, if I'm actually going to lift hard, I need to see a woman, because the reason why I started lifting in the first place was for women. And it just kind of sparks that inspiration to me. And I tell myself, if I hit this set hard, then I get to sleep with that girl, which I'm not playing. I don't even pick up at girls in the gym because I don't want to, they say poop where you eat, stuff like that. Even though that's probably a good place to find disciplined women, I just try not to do that. And plus it would be very awkward. Well, yeah, I try not to do that. I mean, sometimes sometimes I meet a good girl in the gym, but I really even then start it really as friends. Like I don't make a move on girl in the gym, which is perfectly fine. You can, but it's just, I'm an influencer. I'm in the fitness space. I feel like I'm betraying sort of like, almost like doctor-client privilege, like I shouldn't exploit it maybe. But that doesn't mean I'm not looking at the girl and thinking about having boom boom with her, because I am, and it motivates and inspires me. So Oxygen Gym was lacking that, but the equipment was amazing there. But if I want to see hot women and have amazing equipment, then a famous gym, although very expensive, is in Dubai called Venus Gym. But there's also a lot of really other amazing gyms like in Dubai and around these places. I just thought Oxygen Gym stands out, as you said, the most interesting because no females are allowed. And that's very interesting.
Okay. So it's not even because of the equipment or anything. It's just because of that strict rule. It's one of the gyms you worked out. You didn't see any females.
Well, it is the best, some of the best equipment in the world.
Yes.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And the women have their own gym. I'm sure I'm not allowed in their gym, but I'm sure their gym is also really amazing.
Of course. Interesting.
I mean, that's kind of good. Like if you're Muslim, they're very protective over their wives. They don't want their wives to be around any other men other than family. They keep the wives at home. Or if they're in public, they have to be completely covered up so you can't even see who they are. And that sounds very controlling to us Westerners, but this is like how a large portion of the world is. It's normal. We just don't see it that much. But that's why I guess if you're in these places, there's a benefit. Like you go to the gym, you don't have to worry about your girlfriend getting picked up on other. You're never going to lose your girlfriend. She's never going to cheat on you. It's not even possible. She's not even exposed to any other men. So that is the benefit. If you have, especially if you have a really hot wife and you got to isolate her, then the Muslim culture and having her go to a separate gym where there's no men, maybe that makes you feel safer.
Hey, everyone has different approaches. It works for them. Yeah. That's pretty funny though. What would you say is like the natural that you can buy online, most underrated supplement for fitness, people that are into fitness?
Most underrated supplements would be Slin pills on the insulin pathway. The growth hormone pathway would be MK677, which is an oral pill, tablet, capsule, liquid, anything oral that increases your natural growth hormone production. And then on the androgen pathway, see, I break everything down by pathway, would be SARMs. Or if someone's not willing to make the leap to SARMs, then Enhanced has a prohormone 3AD, which doesn't suppress natural testosterone, and a testosterone booster, Top T, and a natural muscle anabolic called Muscle Pro. So these three products do result in significant muscle growth, even though they're natural.
So the last three are natural.
3AD is not natural, but it works through some natural mechanisms, but it's not a natural molecule. The other two are natural. But they're healthy, or 3AD is as healthy as natural or healthier than natural. I mean, if health is the priority, then that's a very healthy stack. And for fat loss, you said for muscle building though, right?
No, just
for just physical transformation.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you.
Suppressants.
I was gonna ask fat loss next. Yeah, so
appetite suppressants. People overeating in Western society is a big problem. So, semaglutide, liraglutide, Saxenda, Monjurno, retatrutide, tirzepatide. Retatrutide's probably the best of all these appetite suppressants. So like Swiss Chems has retatrutide, for example, and that's like a small injection, and then you're not hungry for a week. And makes it easy to diet. You can eat if you want to, but you don't have to.
And it's natural over the counter? Or
well, they're all pharmaceuticals, so they can be bought as research chemicals, like Swiss Chems is research chemicals, or you can go through a clinic like liveforeverlab.com, also known as Live Forever Health, has it by prescription. So you can call up and you can get them all mailed to you with prescriptions through a concierge medical service.
Gotcha. Interesting. But in terms of, let's say, someone that's like, is not even trying to go through that. Let's say they just want to go to their local Amazon.com or Whole Foods and they see a bunch of supplements. It's kind of overwhelming sometimes for a lot of people. That's why they don't know what to buy. What would you say is like, besides like obviously caffeine pills and coffee is a natural suppressant, but is there something on the market, for example, for natural testosterone booster is like Tonga Lee, right? Is known to increase testosterone maybe by 100 points or something like that. Andrew Huberman talks about that. Yeah. Is there anything specific?
Yeah, so let's say like Amazon or something similar. Yeah. So Enhanced products are on there, but also enhancedlabs.com may have better deals, but on Amazon also. Okay. So Enhanced Top T, that's the testosterone booster. You mentioned Tongkat Ali. It has that in it, plus 10 other ingredients. It's like all the herbs that boost testosterone in one product. Very effective. Very noticeable increase in testosterone from Enhanced Top T. and creatine. And Enhanced Labs has creatine. I prefer flavored creatine because it's delicious. Like you're drinking BCAAs, same thing, but the creatine. And then protein powder, and Slim pills.
From my understanding, creatine is the most researched supplement that works, and I always had issues with the powder because I would forget it and stuff. So for me, I like the creatine gummies. That's like a hack right there. Because the gummies, you can just eat them. But mixing the powder and stuff like that, I always forget. What would you say also is a good natural supplement? Because a lot of people like go out on the weekends to drink and have like fatty liver. What's a natural? Because a lot of doctors recommend different pharmaceutical drugs, and someone that perhaps doesn't want to take pharmaceutical drug that the doctor recommends. What is a natural product they can take to increase their liver health that they can access, like on Amazon or Whole
There's
Foods?
dozens of liver products you could take, but the two most effective for the money, the most efficient, like the 80-20 rule, you're going to get 80% of the benefit for 20% of the work and money, would be TUDCA, TUDCA, which Enhanced Labs also has, and NAC, which Enhanced Labs also has. Enhanced Labs has NACET, N-acetylcysteine ethyl ester, NACET. This is much more potent than regular NAC. And then the TUDCA is these are common. They're available anywhere.
I have an NAC actually. I just never take it. But what was it? How do you spell the first one you said?
TUDCA, TUDCA.
Okay, interesting. Okay, awesome. I should look into that. So in general, that seems to be like the 80-20 rule.
Yeah, because you could add in glutathione. You could add in. There's so many. Gosh, short chain fatty acids, and the glutathione would be by injection to be really effective. So then that's a hassle, and you could add in milk thistle, but these all they're just more of a hassle, or they're not as effective. It's like you start with. For liver, you start with TUDCA, and then you add N-acetylcysteine, and then if you want to add something else, then you can add milk thistle or injectable glutathione. But it's like you definitely want to cover those bases first. It's more important.
And like, how much have you seen that to improve? Have you seen people like with bad liver actually using the supplements every day improve significantly? Where they didn't?
Yeah, because we have a lot of people using oral steroids that are liver toxic. But we found that if you combine the TUDCA and the N-acetylcysteine with the oral steroids, then the toxicity is much lower. So someone could take either a higher dosage, which I don't recommend because I prefer SARMs anyways, but some people just want to take oral steroids. Okay, at least take TUDCA and N-acetylcysteine with it and mitigate a lot of the damage that the oral steroids could have taken.
But this sounds more like a preventative versus...
Well, it's much more easy to prevent the damage than to reverse it, but you can reverse it. The liver does recover. The liver does heal. If you want to make a rapid liver transformation, you want to inject a high dosage of glutathione. That's an instant detox. Wow. For preventative, though, you don't need that. You just TUDCA and N-acetylcysteine. Or if the liver damage is minor, then just take TUDCA and N-acetylcysteine over a longer period of time, and it will reverse the damage over time.
What is the time frame you would say you've seen it make a significant impact?
1 month makes a big difference. But the problem is a lot of people have fatty liver that have been developing over 10 years.
Yeah.
And in those cases, you really have to you have to lose fat. You have to fix the metabolism. You have to change the diet. Because it's a long-term damage. And so that's going to take a lot longer. To reverse 10 years of fatty liver could take 6 months. But every day your liver's improving. Every day your liver's functioning better. You don't need to recover the liver extremely fast. You need to reverse the damage and create the habit and the trend towards recovering the liver and not causing more damage if you're there. And fixing insulin sensitivity is one of the most important things. So Slim pills also then make a difference, and losing body fat, and usually a higher protein, lower carbohydrate diet, and certainly lower fructose diet not necessarily avoiding fruit altogether, but the problem is we have too many fruit juices, too many products that add fructose, and then high fructose corn syrup just destroys the liver. And that's the problem. The reason why that's included in so many products is because it's cheap to include and it tastes really good. So like a lot of the best tasting American food products have high fructose corn syrup, and that's causing a lot of people liver damage, much more liver damage than responsible use of oral steroids.
What about food like steak, meat? Does that increase liver, fatty liver?
Not so much, because we have plenty of people who are doing the carnivore diet and reviewing their lab work, and we don't see. You would expect to see also kidney damage from so much protein, but we don't see that in the lab work. I mean, for the short term, as the body's metabolism is adjusting, the triglycerides and the cholesterol will be off. But it's not affecting, and that adjusts, and that will resolve itself. But the liver, we don't see damage to the liver from too much protein. We don't see damage to the kidneys from too much protein, as long as you have adequate water intake. Obviously, if you're dehydrated, every organ and system in your body is going to be under stress. So, and I guess another tip number one for everything is enough hydration.
And also probably not drinking a lot. If you drink on the weekends, right? That causes a lot of...
The problem with alcohol is it's causing damage directly, and it's also preventing your liver from recovering. It's like a double. It's causing temporary damage and long-term damage. Yeah, but everybody's got different sensitivity to it. Some people can drink a lot of alcohol their whole life and not have so many problems, and other people, they don't even realize how much damage they're causing themselves from alcohol. Just largely genetic and how your body processes it. But I think the biggest myth about alcohol is that some amount of alcohol is beneficial, but no, we do not need alcohol. The whole one glass of wine per day and all this stuff is just
it's an excuse.
Justification.
It's an excuse to drink. Yeah, I don't know where that came from. But even one drink, right, your mental performance the next day is not going to be the same. They did actually an experiment in one of the books I read where they gave students they studied all week or something like that, and then one group had 1 or 2 drinks on a Friday and the other one didn't, and then they tested the performance on a Monday and they completely fell off. So what people don't understand, when you drink, it's not like you're recovering just the next day. It's going to take a few, maybe mentally after a few days you feel recovered, but your body is there's still a process of recovery.
Since I'm doing these female transformations, and since a lot of females have some addiction to alcohol or have some mental handicap as a result of alcohol, I noticed that restricting their alcohol or eliminating their alcohol has made a huge difference to their mental performance, the females.
Yeah.
I think what's happening is that when people drink alcohol, they're not able to learn very well. And so while they're on alcohol, that whole night and even the next day, their learning is impaired. So if you add up the amount of days that someone spent on alcohol or the day after alcohol and said, okay, on those days they didn't develop their brain, they didn't learn, then how much less intelligence does someone have who drank alcohol versus who didn't drink alcohol over a period of time? Someone's 40 years old who didn't drink, they have 40 years of learning. Someone who's been drinking for a majority of their life, just deduct all of those days, and their intelligence level, instead of being at age 40, might be at age 25. It seriously impairs mental development. But people don't realize that because it's not like they are noticing a decrease in mental performance. It's that they're experiencing a lack of mental development. And how do they know what to compare the feeling of their mental performance now to what it could have been? They could compare their mental performance now to what it was, but if they started drinking at age 20 and kept drinking their whole life, their mental performance just freezes. They're not going to notice a decline. But the person who didn't drink is going to notice a cognitive incline, mental performance and learning much more over their lifetime. And I noticed with these women where we eliminating alcohol isn't necessarily easy because it's a highly addictive substance.
And it's everywhere accessible.
Yeah, and it's culturally accepted. It's offered everywhere. People think you're crazy if you don't partake. So getting the girls off alcohol was a very difficult puzzle, very difficult biohacking challenge, because technically they didn't want to really stop alcohol. Like I had to biohack them to want to stop drinking alcohol. Imagine that. Which sounds really controlling, but I treat the women like children. Like I know what's best for them, and I need to make the decisions for them, and it just works. Their lives improve that way. If I don't take control, then their lives are never going to improve. So that's the controversial part. But yeah, I have eliminated their alcohol, and I noticed their brain. One, especially baby mama number 2, because I have a 5-year-old daughter with her. She's in Thailand. She's from Philippines. She is not very smart. And the reason why is because she drank alcohol most of her life. And now we've eliminated the alcohol, and she's actually starting to learn consistently for the first time in her adult life at age 33. Amazing. Like she has the brain of like a 16-year-old when she started drinking, and it just got frozen there. No development beyond age 16 because she was drinking. And now we have a gap of like 2 months off alcohol now. And she's getting significantly smarter every day and learning a lot. If we never eliminated alcohol completely, her brain would have been stuck at that of a 16-year-old the rest of her life.
Wow. Even, so even one drink per week is...
Well, then you're losing 1 day of learning per
Yeah.
week. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
So
Because
yeah.
I do feel like in some social situations, because men are more dominant in the approach and women are more being approached. Sometimes they have an anxiety to even interact with guys that they're attracted to. Having one drink for them to relax so they become less anxious is okay, I guess. You know what I mean? But like you said, it does have its consequences because there's no free biological lunch, right? Everything has a cost.
Yeah, that's right. Some people need the alcohol to relax in the social setting. It shouldn't be that way. That's not necessarily natural. I mean, you could say alcohol is natural because it's been part of human evolution for so long. But if men and women understood the role of masculinity and femininity and their purpose here on earth, no one would need alcohol. But where are you going to find people of that level of consciousness? Not common. So unfortunately, a lot of people are going to need alcohol to be the social lubricant.
Especially nowadays with social media, people lost the sense of social interactions because everything is being done online. More people are meeting through dating apps, so they have less anxiety to approach. So yeah, I noticed the social aspect of people having social skills definitely went down because like the technology, it's a double-edged sword. There's benefits to it, like entrepreneurship, building a brand, to being addicted to TikTok scrolling and having an anxiety because you don't interact with people and you're just used to your phone.
Yeah, I guess because if we're scrolling on social media, we're receiving information. We're not proactive. We're not creating or interacting with it. And then when you go in a social situation, now you have to interact. And it's a totally different psychology that it's like a muscle that's not getting exercised, right? Yeah,
Exactly,
right.
because it's all in real time. You're going to have time to think about what comment you want to write or what are you going to say as well. So it shows your social skills from your reference experience. Because if I talk to over like 10, 20,000 people, for me talking to any kind of person is very easy. But someone that's just used to leaving comments online and never really having friends or interacting, for them a social interaction is going to be super uncomfortable.
Yeah. I'm really curious what's going to happen in the future, especially when all STDs are eliminated. Is it going to be like, okay, so at the same time that all STDs are eliminated, there's also going to be artificial intelligence romantic relationships.
Yes.
And you're going to be able to put virtual reality on and have your perfect girl interacting with you. And you're going to have no reason to go out in public. And men might say, oh, but that's fake. You know, it's not real. It will feel real. I've put on the virtual reality headset and done some of these simulations, and my brain and my body thinks that it's a real woman and that I'm having real romantic relationships with it. It's crazy how realistic it is already. Imagine 5 years from now, So we've eliminated STDs, but at the same time, everybody has the technology to have relationships with artificial intelligence characters. Is there going to be like way more romantic relationships, like big orgy parties, because people can without risk? Or is it going to be way less because everybody's going to be staying home on their virtual reality headset?
I think it's going to be way less because right now a lot of men are giving up on dating since most women have access to the global marketplace through number one dating app such as Instagram. So, and they all, most of them believe they're princess, like the perfect 10 that deserves a perfect 10 guy. So they're all chasing the top guys, but most guys are not top guys. So I think there's a stat that by 2030 or 40, don't quote me, but it says that 50% of women are going to be single and childless.
Wow. Yeah. I noticed that the highest value women that I've met, as far as the value like you would want her as your wife, are ones that don't have any social media. No Facebook, no Instagram. And it's shocking that there's even people like this, but there are. There are girls that study, that read. They're kind of isolated. They're harder to meet. How are you going to meet them? They're not on dating apps.
Yeah.
They're not on... They just don't use the technology as much. But these women are just pure gold. Like they're rare, but they are amazing. And there's not very many, and they're hard to find. And I wish there was more. And this is what's really missing.
Or even women that do have Instagram, but they might have like 2-3 pictures. They don't really use it. They don't have like super revealing pictures that attracts random DMs and guys offering them random stuff because, you know, it's the concept once exposed, you cannot be unexposed. All it takes for a girl is one DM of a guy. She's like, oh, I actually had a crush on him when I was younger or something like that. She flies out there. He's a multimillionaire, invites her to a boat. You think she's going to go date a guy now that works at Walgreens? Once you're exposed, you cannot be unexposed. You get ruined.
Now that's not it's not a bad thing for a wealthy man, successful man, to get an inexperienced girl if he's going to keep her. And that's how it should be. It should be like the man, I believe, there's two ways to approach it. There's either like you find the girl where she's inexperienced and you're inexperienced and you build the life together. That's like high school sweethearts. That's fine. Or I think the other successful way is the man is already very successful and he finds the inexperienced girl. And then she's able to truly fall in love. It's like her first, maybe she had a boyfriend, a first love, but like this man is like her dream. And she's able to fully give herself and her future to him. But the problem is if the men are just running through the women, they're kind of wrecking them because then these women are just never going to be the perfect woman anymore. It's like the woman has one shot to fall in love with her dream man and have that original love that lasts a lifetime and that extremely deep pair bonding. And if she doesn't nail it, then she's kind of wrecked for life. I mean, not wrecked, but she can never be 100%. The best she could ever be is like 90%.
There's a stat that I read that came out that, you know, how a lot of people like body count doesn't count. But here's the thing. There's a research that came out that after a certain amount, I think it was 4 or 5, the percentage of divorce rate keeps going up. Yeah. So a lot of women don't understand that they look for what a guy will bring in the future, but guys do care about the girl's past, and a lot of women don't understand that because they don't care most of the time about the guy's past. But we're different. Because, like I said, the concept of once exposed cannot be unexposed. If something negative happened or abusive relationship, sure, it sucks for a woman, and you know I feel bad for them. But the reality is that's going to reflect on the current relationship as well.
Yeah, the quality of a woman's psychology is usually dependent on how much trauma she's suffered. Women don't need to experience trauma. In fact, the less trauma they experience, the better.
Yeah.
But for men, the more trauma, the better.
Yes.
The harder the life, the more the struggle, the more resilient. because the man has to be the warrior for the family. The woman needs to be protected and worry about the internal mechanisms of the family and take care of the children. I mean, this is old fashioned. This is how it's supposed to be. This is how it worked throughout history. So to Americans to hear this style is like blasphemy.
Yeah.
Because it's totally contrary to Western culture. But I mean, Western people, in my experience, are the most miserable in their relationships anywhere I've gone in the world. So I don't think Western society is optimal for optimal relationships to thrive.
I mean,
and we should be looking at other cultures.
Otherwise, the divorce rate in California wouldn't be like more than 50%, right?
Yeah.
So obviously, what happens? Yeah, we always wanted women to be equal and give them power. Nothing wrong with that. I love women, but what's happening is now a lot of guys are kind of act very low level because they're not getting the same type of women they used to get when Instagram didn't exist, because the women were dating only guys locally versus global access. A direct message from Leonardo DiCaprio, "Let me fly you out," where the guys, they settle down, a lot of them kind of with the first thing they get, but that woman also might have already went through all the drama, her party phase and everything, and then the guy kind of gets the horrible stick end of it, because now women have a lot of power, but the rules for marriage and laws have not been updated or been changed. So a woman can cheat on you in front of you and can divorce you and take half of your shit or even more. And a lot of guys will say, well, what about a prenup? But prenup is the money you made before, and a lot of it gets nullified by California divorce attorneys. Look what happened with like Dr. Dre. I think his wife was asking for $1 million a month or something like that. It's crazy.
She's incentivized. They're incentivized to
Yes.
leave. The government wants to, it's almost like the way the system in America is built is to break up the traditional family structure so that the government has more control over each individual instead of a powerful family unit. Yeah, because if a family unit stays together, they're going to question the government. But if a family's broken up, and especially if the women rely and control, because the women have the vagina, so they control a lot. If the government can so easily control the women, then the government can control the men through the women. And this, I think, it's a well played out strategy. It's working. It's working not in our favor, but in the government's favor. So that's why I choose alternative relationships in alternative countries, because it's sad that now I'm 42 and my opinions of this have completely changed. I used to think Western society was the best, America number one. I used to think that experienced women are better because then they know what they want. They're more, developed. They're going to know more what I want. I thought men and women are supposed to be like equals in a relationship. I didn't realize there was supposed to be like, how most cultures say God and then man and then women, and women are put here to be men's helpers and to help build the family. So that's my approach now, but it wasn't always my approach. So I saw it from the other side. I was on the other side completely in favor of Western society. But here I am now, realizing after I've now experienced some of these relationships, and like it's a whole different thing. It's like men in America have almost never truly experienced a 100% feminine women because there are so few of them. Maybe a 70%, but like most don't even know what it's like to have a truly feminine woman, or like one of these relationships where the Muslims have, or in India where they have arranged marriages and the wife is a virgin when you marry her. I mean, it's a whole different thing that men they don't even know what to compare it to. They don't know what they're missing, I should say.
They don't know what they don't know.
And now I've experienced it, and now I'm just like, oh my gosh, I can't live without that.
Yeah.
I need that. I want a wife who doesn't have experience. I want a wife who's able to deeply pair bond. I want a wife who will be committed to me forever, biologically, psychologically, and physically.
And most guys don't want government involved in their relationship, right, which is what the contract of marriage is nowadays. Right. And I still want to get married, but at the same time, why involve the government? I think there's other ways. So I'm still for my future trying
You
to
can always
decide.
do the ceremony and not sign a marriage certificate. I would get married. I mean, I have 5 girlfriends, and I would have all of them marry me, or a few of them marry me in a joint marriage ceremony, and just not sign a marriage certificate.
But most guys in America cannot even get one girl. So when they hear you talking about 5 women, it might be out of
Yeah.
reality for them.
So yeah, any guy can get girls, but it might not be the girl you're proud to have, or you want to have, or that you should have children with. But there's plenty of girls out there. You just don't want them. Like, there's not a lot of quality girls. I mean, there's even a lot of hot girls you could have for one night stands, but there's very few quality girls that men should actually marry.
And to be fair to women, there's not that many high quality guys nowadays as well.
Well, that's true. So,
You know what I mean? So
yeah,
it's
because the government's destroying masculinity, the men are also not masculine for the females.
they're
like
pandering.
They should be.
They're pandering. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Say what you said again, because I had another thought about it.
Okay, so I said, to be fair to the ladies and women, there's also not many high quality guys nowadays out there.
Yeah. So when I said that I think there's 2 optimal ways to approach a relationship, remember, I felt completely different before, but I'm saying now, after all my experience and what's right for me, one is the high school sweetheart, build the life together, or the other one is the man builds his success and then finds the woman. And the problem is, the more successful you become as a man, the higher your standards get, the smaller the pool of available women. And at the same time, you're getting older, and at the same time, culture is destroying femininity, and the same time, it's becoming more competitive for the few women that are value. As you get more successful, it becomes infinitely more difficult to find a woman worth giving your life to.
And you're getting access to more women because you're becoming more successful, and women's evolutionary psychology shows they are attracted to resources. So don't call them gold diggers, because it's just a natural thing. Like, part of it, yeah, a man has to be able to provide. So yeah, like, as you become more successful, women get attracted to that because they're driven to.
But the problem is, if you reach this level of success at age 40, let's say, and now you're ready to have a really successful family, and now as a man, you're really willing to commit your life to this woman and this family. But the problem is, the women are usually psychologically wrecked, by the time they're 23. So now a 40-year-old man who wants a high-quality woman to have children and a family with, he's looking at women that are, 18 to 23. And now that the pool is getting smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
And as I was talking to Ash about this, I'm like, so he said women are having sex at really young ages now in America. I don't know. I'm not familiar with, what the youth is doing, but and because of social media programming their subconscious, it would even be hard to find an 18-year-old who's a psychological virgin, I would say. Yeah. So this is why I believe, like, I'm not giving up on women completely. And I'm not saying that women can't fix this problem and that men can't fix this problem. I'm actually saying this is the problem, but there is a solution. We don't have to completely give up on women. We can biohack our women to be feminine. We can biohack them to reverse some of this psychological damage. And I call it creating the born-again virgin, because after they have sex, something changes physically, something changes emotionally and psychologically. But there are things you can do to reset that and to erase the trauma. And also women can actually reach such a high level of intelligence and consciousness where they're completely aware of everything that's psychological in their head. And then they can choose to be what they want to be. But not very many women are going to do that, but they can. And that's very impressive. But oftentimes it's going to be up to the man to say, okay, I really love this woman, but this woman is not able to love me 100% because of the psychological damage or the subconscious influence that's been exerted on her. So how do we fix that damage so that I can have 100% love from this woman, and this woman can be my born-again virgin? And that can be done through biohacking.
So in terms of biohacking, what are kind of things that you can talk about that's kind kind of had a big impact psychologically on women, besides like, diet and working out, but psychological change? What is it, something besides like removing bad habits such as maybe vaping or drinking? What made the most impact where you seen a big change in one of your girlfriends psychologically?
The biggest change I ever saw was with Foxy, and she's really hot. She's really sexy. But of course, like most hot, sexy girls, she had a lot of psychological damage, a lot of drinking, a lot of partying, a lot of men. And we fixed it with mushrooms.
Oh,
I mean, that was what made the biggest difference. When she did mushrooms the first time, she had the craziest emotional breakdown because she was purging all of this damage, and she was living a lie. Because when people have trauma, they cover it up with mental scars. Like there's scars in their psychology, and then they can't. They're not even aware of the fact that they're being controlled by their subconscious and the trauma that made them who they are at that time. The mushrooms allows them to lose the ego completely and to understand what actually the thoughts are deep in the subconscious that are causing them to act and think the way they do. So instead of being controlled by their past and controlled by their subconscious, they become conscious of who they are, what they're doing, what they're thinking, what influences are on their psychology. And then they're able to recreate it. Then they're able to, now not everybody's going to do mushrooms one time and have that kind of breakthrough, but she did that one time. I mean, she did mushrooms, and then for the first time she was honest. She's like, I cheated on you. I've been feeling guilty about it, but I covered it up. Like she lied to herself that it even happened so that she could look me straight in the eye and say, I never cheated on you. Because she was lying to herself so deep in her psychology, she could take a lie detector test and pass it. And then when you start living a lie like that, everything in your reality has to bend to that lie. Everything has to bend to the ego. And then you're not even really living. You're not even really conscious. You're living unconsciously. So she went from being an unconscious robot controlled by her past to being a conscious individual aware of her own thoughts and her emotions. It was an amazing detox. It was a life-changing experience for her. Maybe not everybody's going to have that significant, but that let me know that this is one pathway towards creating a born-again virgin, getting rid of all of that psychological trauma. And she never actually felt real love until after she did mushrooms. She thought she did, but because every love that she ever felt was based on a lie and based on trauma and based on addiction, she never experienced true love until she did that detox and cleaned out that psychology with the mushrooms. That's just one way to do it. It's just the most extreme thing I've ever seen as far as a 180-degree turn in a woman's psychology.
Yeah, I seen. I talked to some people that I seen that, maybe it's from like a very conservative Asian household or Indian household. When they try something like a psychedelic, all of a sudden their perception of reality almost changes, and they start thinking a little bit different. Now, we're not recommending everyone does mushrooms or anything like that, but Tony is just explaining what he found out with that experiment that he did, because you're pretty much an experimental guy. You like to experiment.
Yeah, and when you do experiments like this, it's not like when we do a mass blast and put 20 pounds of permanent muscle on someone in 12 days. It's not that I'm saying this is what everybody should do, but it's a scientific discovery. We learn more about how the brain and the body works through these experiments. So what did we learn from that? We learned that probably most females are controlled. Females are very intuitive. They do things based on emotion, based on their intuition, which is great if they're psychologically pure. But as they collect trauma and as their subconscious gets programmed by the media or things that don't have their best interest, they become unconscious. And so the experiment proved that I believe most women are unconscious, but most women have the potential to become conscious. And how you get there, whether it's mushrooms or some other way, is a choice of the individual. It could be through doing years of therapy, probably would have the same benefit. But what we did is we accomplished what probably 5 years of therapy did. We accomplished that in 4 hours.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. Yeah. I have a question. So, like it seems like, just switching subjects here, TRT is a big thing now in America, and a lot of guys in their 40s starting to take it and recommending it to other people, doctors, unless it's like TRT clinic. I hear things such as TRT insurance only covers TRT if you're like below 200 points or something like that. What are your thoughts in general, like on TRT as people get older? Is it what are the risks? What are the benefits? Just your general sense, because I have never taken anything like that. So but I keep hearing about TRT, especially for older guys that have their testosterone drop every year.
TRT good. More men need higher testosterone for their own benefit, for their family's benefit, for their future partner's benefit, for their friends' benefit, for their community's benefit, for the country's benefit. Everybody benefits. This is not something where we want to learn the secret to life is increasing testosterone and keep it to ourselves. The more men that increase testosterone, the better all of our lives will be. So the reason why now we need TRT, or we need things to increase testosterone, is because testosterone levels are unnaturally low right now through many different influences, like chemicals in our water, chemicals in our food, the media suppressing masculinity, culture suppressing masculinity, unnatural lifestyles like working on a computer instead of working outside, getting less sunlight, having a inconsistent sleep schedule, not waking up with the sunlight, and, resting with the sunset.
Yeah.
Anxiety from noise, from lights, from too many people, from technology. So all of these factors and more are suppressing men's testosterone. And I think that it's unnatural to let these unnatural influences lower our testosterone, and that it's more natural to restore our testosterone to our ancestors' testosterone levels. So I think all men in America should be at least on a natural testosterone booster. That's why we developed Enhanced Top T. Or if they want to go the medical route, then at least be supplementing with additional testosterone. I mean, there are plenty of men who have adequate testosterone levels, but what is an adequate testosterone level?
That's what I was going to ask you. So what would you recommend? Well, first of all, you don't want like a 16-year-old hopping on TRT or anything, right? But
sometimes 16-year-olds should be doing something to increase testosterone, because they are, especially if they're experiencing gyno, they have a lot of breast fat, or they have some metabolic syndrome that is being caused by their diet. Like, yeah, they would have not needed to increase their testosterone if they lived a healthy lifestyle, but now they created damage. And if they don't fix it quickly, they're going to suffer the rest of their life with the developmental problems that resulted from testosterone deficiency during puberty.
What would you say is the level a guy, in his, let's say, 30s, 40s, they're hitting where they need to start hopping on TRT? What would be like?
Well, you do
baseline?
have to go by feeling, which is difficult, because if someone's got low testosterone, maybe they don't even know what it feels like to have high testosterone, because there's a testosterone level in the blood, but then there's also how many androgen receptors do you have and how sensitive you are to that level of testosterone. But generally, the medical range, they say, is between 300, let's say 320 to 1100. And most men are probably, between 500 and 600. And mainstream medical would say that's a high testosterone, that's good. But probably naturally, men should probably be around 900. So, let's put it this way. If you take a natural testosterone booster like Top T, your testosterone might go from 500 to 750.
Oh, okay.
Now, I would say that that's putting you where your ancestors were. Like whatever the natural testosterone booster does to counteract the testosterone suppression caused by our modern environment is probably the optimal place to be. So for most people, like most men, 90% of men should probably be taking enhanced top T to boost their testosterone and be at the optimal level, which would probably bring the average man from 500 to 750.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. So it seems like at first, if someone has a low T, I would say it seems like they need to first start working out and changing the diet, because that will already improve the testosterone if they're just sitting around eating pizza all day, which I think is a common factor nowadays. And then try natural boosters versus perhaps jumping straight up without working out or changing the diet straight to TRT. Would you say that, or
well,
you
it's
say
a little
do
bit
everything?
of the chicken or the egg
Yeah,
problem,
chicken and egg
because
problem.
if you increase the testosterone, you're going to want to eat healthier and you're going to want to exercise. If you want to raise testosterone without using supplements, then you're going to have to force yourself to go to the gym, and it's going to be mentally painful because your low testosterone is making you not want to go to the gym. And it's going to be harder to be dieting, and it's going to be harder to be disciplined. I mean, if you want to see what like the ultimate masculine, natural living man is, then think about like these military type
David
guys.
Goggins. He doesn't take any testosterone.
Just rugged. They're
like it.
physically active. They're tough. They're resilient. If you do that and you act like that, your testosterone will go up. But psychologically, that's so hard to do. It's so much easier to boost your testosterone, and then the discipline comes more naturally.
I see. So in terms of another thing is like a lot of people probably don't want to, like, let's say they do need TRT and the doctor recommends it. A lot of people like don't want to inject themselves with needles, right? That's one thing. I know there's pills that are supplements, but they're not as effective. And another thing I was going to ask you is, what about, does TRT have an effect on sperm production or giving quality birth if you're in TRT? How does it affect your sperm levels?
Well, this is where the advantage of taking a like enhanced top T testosterone booster is going to improve sperm quality, improve fertility, improve natural testosterone production, versus injecting testosterone is going to suppress your own natural testosterone production. It's better to inject testosterone than to have low testosterone, but it's better to cause your body to naturally produce more testosterone through using something like enhanced top T than it is to inject testosterone, because eventually you inject testosterone long enough, you're going to have a little bit of suppression of your serotonin system. You're going to have just different physiological changes through your body. But you said fertility, so the main effect there is that injecting testosterone will decrease fertility to some extent, unless someone's very deficient. It's like if someone's 200 nanograms per deciliter, we said the scale was like 320 to 1100. If someone injects testosterone and they have 200 testosterone and they bring it up to 500, their fertility is actually going to improve.
Okay.
But if their testosterone's 400 and now they're injecting testosterone to get to 1,000, now we're getting to where their natural testosterone levels getting suppressed in favor of the external testosterone, and then fertility and testicle size and other things can suffer as a result.
So, women's fertility and their eggs, I think by 32 or something, like 80-90% of their eggs are done. So for men, as we get older, right, have you ever thought about something like freezing sperm so you have quality sperm as you get older?
Yeah, friends freeze their sperm, and I probably should. The reason I didn't before is because I thought, oh wow, it's super affordable, it makes sense. The reason I didn't freeze sperm is, number one, you have to pay a monthly fee forever as long as you want to store it.
Yeah.
Which now it doesn't seem like a big deal, but back then when I was considering it did seem like a big deal. And you have to not orgasm for a certain amount of days first, and then you have to go give a load, and then wait 4 days and give another load, and wait 4 days and give another load. And so to do it right, really, you want to not have sex for a while and just keep giving all that sperm to the storage. And I just didn't want to go through that process, because normally I have sex 3 times a day, and I have a lot, orgasms, and I don't want to take a break from that to store sperm. I should, but because I know biohacking, because I know I can always restore, unless I lose a testicle, I should always be able through biohacking to increase my sperm count when needed. Now, I let my fertility drop low. I'm okay with that because I don't want to accidentally get a girl pregnant who I have a one night stand with. I want it to take some work. So, the perfect thing for me is if I'm trying to have a child with a woman for 1 year and then she gets pregnant because my fertility is low, that's perfect. That's great for me.
But in terms of as you get older and their sperm quality, can the child have a bigger chance of like being born with some disability or disease?
Not really, because the low quality the sperm is different from the DNA that's being transported by the sperm. The sperm is just a vehicle. So the vehicle, like the tails, there may be multiple tails on the sperm. They might not be able to swim as fast or as far, might not necessarily impact the genetics inside the sperm. So I'm not worried about the quality of genetics because there is other benefits too. As I become older, more experienced, more spiritually connected, I believe those enhanced epigenetics are an advantage. I think my sperm quality is much higher now at age 42 than it was 10 years ago because of everything that I've experienced. I believe that there is some epigenetic factors that are carried onto the child from what you've experienced. And the more I experience before that sperm and meets that egg and makes that child, the better. So I'm looking forward to seeing, I think that my future children are going to be my best children. Yeah.
Okay. And what would you say, if you had on the spot, your favorite workout routine? Or like a body part to work out?
Yeah, it's really enjoyable to push through a pain threshold. It's almost a spiritual experience. And when you really connect your mind to your body and your spirit, let's say, something more than your mind, because your mind will tell you, no, this pain or whatever, and you have to think of something greater than yourself. A lot of champions in athletics, they use God as their tool, spirituality. But anything that you can think of that's just bigger than yourself. So I like once in a while to work through that pain threshold. Like I think that's psychologically very beneficial, and I think it is spiritual to train at that level. I don't do that very often, but that feeling stands out as a real top 10 human experience feeling. And it's so easy. It's so accessible. It's not easy. But that doesn't mean you have to run a triathlon, although that's one way to do it.
Well, which exercise would you say gives you that? Squats, deadlifts?
Squats, my limiting factor would be my cardiovascular system.
Okay.
So pushing through that, I think I will just collapse. So it's got to be a smaller muscle group where it doesn't, the cardiovascular system is not the limiting factor. I always liked working chest a lot, but I think as I get older, I'm appreciating arms more, which is so cliche, but arms just feel so good when they're pumped, and you can look at the muscle. You can see the muscle, train the muscle, connect to the muscle, touch the muscle. And so that just makes it like a holistic human experience, mentally, physically, and spiritually. And you're looking right at it. Yeah.
Awesome. Let's do I'm going to give you some random words and you just tell me one line what you think about them. All right. Thailand.
Freedom.
Vegas.
Home. As far as the United States, I feel like Las Vegas is home now.
Women.
My phrase about that is I was wrong about everything and now I know.
Fitness.
Necessary for everyone.
Dumbbell pullover.
Amazing stretch and rib cage expansion.
United States.
Potential to be the greatest country in the world.
All right. I think that's it for today. I mean, I have more questions, but we can do part 2 always, or take a break.
You don't know how hard it is to me to just respond to something in one phrase. I
Yeah,
could talk for an hour on each one
I
of those.
know,
So
I
that was a good exercise for me.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
It's great having you on.
thanks.
We'll do more.